Okay, well, good. Well, let's just start with a couple of items, logistical items. First of all, thank you all for joining our new rules for recycling at home panel discussion. Today is Thursday, August 13th. This event is being hosted by the Green Justice Team at the Holiday United Church of Christ, but we've invited many other faith communities to join and watch and participate. So welcome to everyone. Let me just say, if you are joining via Zoom and you want to participate we'll have a live part of live Q&A section at the end, the last 15 minutes. So I would ask that you please go ahead and rename yourself if your name is not showing up correctly. So if you look at this little photo right here, I'm trying to indicate where you can do that. So just hover over your photo, look for the dots, click on it, and then click rename and put in your name. Your name might be fine, but if it isn't, please go ahead and rename yourself just so we won't get confused when we get to the live section. Second, I would ask that everybody please stay on mute until we open the live Q&A at the end. So that'll be like the last 15 minutes of our panel discussion. And that's really just to limit echoes and weird noise interference that happens sometimes on these Zoom calls. And so if we do start to notice that echoing, Roger is going to go ahead and try to find and mute whoever is unmuted. And it's not because we don't like you, it's just because we're trying to, keep a copacetic environment for our panel discussion. Third, I would just like to invite all those who are participating live to consider these two group agreements. So these are not requirements, but I would just ask that you consider them. That, as we're interacting with each other, we do so with the desire to build one another up. In some of our church language, we say build one another up in love, but we could say, or at least goodwill. And that, if you want to try it on, have the intention to challenge and transform the world, but always remembering to begin with ourselves. And then the last item, just to let everybody know, we will be recording this panel discussion for later viewing. And that's really just so we can share the good information that we're getting with a larger audience than just those who are able to join us tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And then let's go ahead with the first part of our panel discussion. So we're very lucky to have three panelists with us tonight. And what I've asked them to do is to start out by giving a 10-minute introductory remarks. And in those remarks to just basically answer, what are three things that you wish people knew about recycling at home? And so we're going to start actually with Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell is actually one of my colleagues. I work for Salt Lake City in the Department of Sustainability. And Chris Bell is the Salt Lake City Waste and Recycling Division Director. So we'll hear first from Chris, then when he's done, we'll go right to, I'll do a little introduction for our next panelist, Samantha, and then our following and final panelist, Ethan. But let's go ahead and start, Chris, with you.
Sure. Thanks, Christopher. Good intro, and I like the agreements that you put up there, because without stealing my own thunder, they'll kind of tie into my present. One of them actually ties into the presentation pretty well. So anyway, good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be here joining for those of you on Zoom and I guess those of you we can't see out there on Facebook and or YouTube Live. So, but thanks. And actually, Christopher invited me to participate in this a couple weeks ago, and was thrilled at the opportunity, because really it's number one, it's great to see a faith community and group focusing on important issues like this. But it's a time in the world when there are a lot of things finally moving all in the right direction. And so conversations like this and spreading awareness and knowledge like this about sustainability issues, environmental issues, recycling certainly being an important piece of them, are really important. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to try to mind my now probably 9.5 minutes or so, but I'm going to share my screen and just run through some slides that I've put together to just talk a little bit about our program and what we do for residents and some small businesses and multifamily complexes in Salt Lake City, hoping that there are some Salt Lake residents tuned in here, but beyond what we just do as a city, try to answer some of these questions and help y'all feel a little more knowledgeable at the end of this with regard to where you can recycle some things and understanding how this whole industry works. So let me share this. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yes, cool, right on. So I've been here at Salt Lake City just over it'll be 7 months next week. I came back here after moving away for about 4 years. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and it's my first foray into the public sector, but I wanted to move from the private sector into the public sector to just to, increase my level of service on a personal career and professional level. So it was great to come back to the city I started my career in, that's growing so much and changing so much. Just again, to get in a little bit about, excuse me, let me get this going. About what we do. Our waste and recycling division is part of our Department of Sustainability that Christopher and I work together in. We are sort of the operations side of our department. We service about 41,000, almost really 42,000 residences throughout Salt Lake City, mostly single family, but some small businesses and duplexes and triplexes. And we provide weekly collection service of refuse, recycling, green waste or compost, and also a bulk item pickup program that's rather innovative. That's not a weekly or monthly thing. Rather, it's a pre-scheduled on-demand service. So there's just there's one of our CNG powered, in this case, automated side load trucks picking up a recycling container. So where does it all go? When it goes into the truck, we'll get into that. So I mentioned our weekly service. The way these slides are set up, it's going to look like I'm bouncing back and forth a little bit, but I promise it's logical in the end. So we actually run a pretty innovative bulk item pickup program that is an on-demand program. It's actually one of the most innovative and sustainable in the country, because it allows us to pick up folks on a request basis. It allows us to divert a lot of material that we weren't in the past under previous bulk neighborhood cleanup, mass cleanup programs. We're actually able to get some diversion of materials to recyclers of various kinds and compost to our own compost facility at the Salt Lake Valley landfill. But it also allows us to do it with a much smaller, leaner footprint than mass cleanup. And it also, frankly, helps us serve the city and the valley much more equitably. And it helps us kind of stay more proactive through the way we schedule it to stay on top of illegal dumping issues and whatnot that we face, and particularly here on the west side of the valley. So we implemented this a couple of years ago. It's been an amazing shift, and because the city was so used to a bulk neighborhood cleanup program for so long, but this is going well and continues to be busier and busier with greater adoption and awareness through the residents. So we also do a lot of education and outreach, formats like this being one of them, but certainly week to week, we have a recycling education team that I'll show a few pictures of, but we spend a lot of time proactively checking recycling and green waste carts out in the community to make sure that they're not contaminated or try and minimize contamination. And those are feet on the street, but the hallmark of any successful recycling and diversion program is constant education. So we invest a lot in that. We feel like we are leading the way in that, and it's something that really has no finish line. So there's one of our team out on a electric bike checking carts. Again, this has no finish line. We do this really year round, and when it gets too cold and to not be out on our bikes and our T3 electric scooters, we're doing it in cars and covered UTVs. So just a little bit about some of the funny things we find in recycling carts. I can't believe somebody threw that painting away. It's certainly not recyclable, but it probably could have been dropped off somewhere, or someone would have gladly taken that for reuse. So more on that later. The plastic film we'll talk about, but because it is very recyclable, just not in our curbside bin. Christopher, I told you I'd save the best for later. Pizza, please. We'd rather not even have the box, but please no whole pizzas. And excuse us if that's a little offensive with the animal carcass in that green waste container, but that was a container that got tagged for misuse, because there's everything in there but what is supposed to be in a common compost cart. Animal carcasses are actually compostable, but not in our program. I don't know if you saw on the slide earlier, but we do a lot of other education and outreach. We do have a really cool resident volunteer program called the Master Recycler Program. We had to suspend it this year due to COVID, but we always have full rosters for a couple different sessions, and there are multiple classes in each program. We're actually in the process of rescoping that to be able to accomplish that through either distanced or completely virtual. So we're shifting that whole curriculum, but it's well attended and very informative. Our website's there. Take note of it. We can mention it later, but something to be aware of for the future. Try not to spend too much more time on this, but we do, again, business and multifamily unit recycling. We have a city ordinance that requires any business or multifamily unit putting out over 4 cubic yards of waste to offer recycling service and participate in a program. So, and then we provide that service to them. Special events, we have a permitting process that requires permits and recycling waste diversion plans to be filed for any special events that are held on city property. And of course, very few are happening right now due to the pandemic. We actually do have the Tuesday farmers market going, but we participate very actively in providing carts for a small fee, and signage and communication, and just educating to the extent we can on how best to minimize waste and divert at those events. And then finally, we have a C&D ordinance that we do require and monitor for permitting and diversion plans. So first and foremost, and hopefully this is kind of an attention grabber, the 3 things that we wish folks knew, in the Valley. Number 1, recycling is not the answer. Now that I have all your attention, probably, I hope, it's part of the answer. It's not the whole answer by any means. So um, the EPA and the European Union several years ago have adopted what's called the waste management hierarchy, and really recycling is frankly part of the top of the last resort part of the spectrum. It's not preferred in the sense that just using less and reducing consumption in the first place, and then um, reuse right behind that is far preferred. And not to get on a soapbox, but that's a big one for us, because it's cultural. Um, but it's we have to Christopher's point earlier, start with ourselves, and that's where reduction and reuse comes in, and we all have a personal responsibility to make the choices that we do with regard to consumption and responsible use, reuse, and packaging and whatnot. So we can't, as a society, really, frankly, depend on recycling and the infrastructure in the industry to carry us with, and just clean up, frankly, after any kind of consumption habit that we want. So the other thing is recycling has changed. It's changed in the last 10 years. It's changed in the last 5 years, 2 years. And I realize I'm at about time, but I'm gonna kind of rip through these a little faster. But really, we've had global changes that we can get into, local changes, market changes, and packaging changes, all of which continue to evolve. But the good news here is that finally, I think probably for the first time ever in the industry and as a society, most people are finally rowing the same direction with regard to having an understanding of what works and what doesn't. And that means communicating locally like this to know what is recyclable, where to recycle it, and knowing what packaging is really sustainable and what's not. And if something's not, then you're making the economic choice to vote with your dollars honestly about whether you not buy that product or you buy it from someone who puts it in a better package, if you need it at all. So that's the last piece of that is checking locally, and again it's back to communication on understanding, and so that's why this whole conversation is so important. And we can swing back to this. I don't want to take up too much more time. And there are some other solutions out in the valley for recycling other materials that just don't belong in the blue bin, but there are plenty of local, bins, takeaway solutions, et cetera. So third, last, recycling still worth it. After all that, we have environmental benefits that are without question, the right thing to do, and numbers to back that up. So it's here to stay, and we just have to stay abreast of all the changes. So I think that's really it for me. Thanks, and apologize I went over a little bit. So without further ado, I'm going to turn my screen share off.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. There was at least one question that came in, and I wrote it down for later on, because I do want to make sure that we've got enough time, for all of our panelists to present, and then we'll start going to questions. Roger did want me to just remind everyone that there is a chat feature at the bottom of your screen. So if you want to open up that chat, there's interesting questions, and like Chris showed that master recycling web address, and then Chelsea went ahead and put that in the chat. So if you want to open that chat, you'll see resources pop through there and other questions that might get you thinking. But let's go ahead and move to our next guest panelist. So Samantha DeSeelhorst, I know also through my work, but she does not work for Salt Lake City, but she wears multiple hats for multiple jurisdictions. But we've been working on a renewable energy program together. So it's been great to get to know her. And anyway, so she's the joint sustainability coordinator for 3 communities, Mill Creek, Cottonwood Heights, and Holiday. And she's also an assistant planner for Cottonwood Heights. So I thought just the fact that Holiday United Church of Christ is in Holiday, we've got folks who live in Holiday, that it'd be great to have Samantha join us. So Samantha, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. And you'll just have to bear with me for one moment while I queue it up. And I'm going to do the classic ask. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, okay, wonderful. So as Christopher mentioned, my name is Samantha. I'm a city planner for most of my time for Cottonwood Heights, but I have a wonderful blessing of being able to work as a sustainability analyst for those 3 cities, one of which is the city within which your church is housed. So please continue to use me as a resource for any green justice team needs. And my information is here, and I think I have it at the end again if anyone has any questions. I am really excited to be here tonight, partially because I'm really passionate about sustainability and partially because I grew up right down the street from your church. So it's an absolute delight to be connecting with you guys as a native Holiday-ite. I don't know if that's the right word, but thank you for having me, Pastor Chelsea and Christopher. I'm going to touch on 3 kind of big ideas that I think people should know about recycling. I'm going to try to go through those pretty quick so that we leave plenty of time for your important questions. The first thing I want to talk about is going zero waste. So we know that recycling is a really critical part of sustainability in diverting products from landfills. When we recycle things, we keep them from ending up in a landfill, like we see on my screen here. But it's not the full solution. And I really appreciate that Chris touched on that with his hierarchy of waste management, because there are still products that end up in landfills. Not everything can be recycled, and to really limit landfill use, I really encourage us all to not only be really mindful about how we recycle, but how we, maybe what we're throwing away at a landfill and how we manage that. Is it ever really possible to completely eliminate trash from your life? Maybe not, but for some folks, maybe so. Here on the left, we have a woman named Bea Johnson. Bea is kind of a zero waste pioneer, if you will. She is holding a pint-sized jar that contains her entire family of 4's trash from a whole year, which is absolutely incredible. And then on the right, we have a woman named Lauren Singer, who is also a very well-known kind of figure in the zero waste or trash-free world. And Lauren is holding a 16-ounce jar that contains all of her individual trash from the past 8 years. So 2 incredible examples of really limiting what you send to landfills. Obviously, these examples are kind of on the extreme end. At least if I'm speaking for myself, I realistically probably am not going to produce that small of amount of trash. That being said, though, there's so much we can each do to reduce the amount we do send. And to do that, I encourage you all to do kind of a trash can inventory, if you will. So let your trash cans fill up over the course of the week, and maybe do this several weeks in a row for an accurate picture, and take note of what are your most common items in your trash, your repeat offenders, if you will. When I did this kind of trash inventory maybe 5 years ago or so on my own trash cans, I found a lot of waxed coffee cups, which you see in the top left corner, that cannot be recycled because of the waxed interior. Found a lot of tissues and a lot of Q-tips or cotton swabs. So some easy zero waste swaps that I made were getting a designated reusable coffee mug that just stays in my purse. Every time I wash it, it goes right back in so that I always have it. Some good old fashioned handkerchiefs that can be washed, and then a reusable cotton swab that can be sterilized. It's actually silicone instead. So I encourage you to do a little bit of trash hunting yourselves and make those swaps. Even if you don't get all the way down to a jar a year, any effort is the right track. Next, I want to talk a little bit about thinking outside of the box of recycling. If you're anything like me, when you think of recycling, you probably think of maybe some different containers that split recyclable materials. Maybe we have plastic or paper, aluminum, maybe glass. And those are all such important things to recycle. And it's so great that we are, really mindful, and that's been really well popularized. But there are other products too that end up in landfills that through some creative recycling of their own could have kind of a different life. So in addition to, considering how you manage your mixed recycling that you put in your blue bin, I'd like to encourage you to think a little bit outside of the box. Think about products maybe like electronics, maybe clothing and textiles, and maybe food. The figures I have underneath these pictures come from the EPA, and their estimates based on a single year, I think they came from 2017, of the amount in weight in tons that these components make up in landfills. So we see these massive, massive quantities. There's probably still going to be these items going to landfills. I try to be a realist with, we're probably not going to keep it all out, but if we were able to divert even some of these items and reduce those just massive mind-boggling figures, I think that would have such a transformative effort. So I just kind of put together a few things you might consider before you, opt for a landfill. With old electronics and with clothing, let's consider maybe some local swap groups. I am part of a group on Facebook, which is called Buy Nothing Sugar House, because I live in Sugar House, but they have them all over. And it's an opportunity for you to post used items that you no longer need for your neighbors who may really benefit from them. For electronics, there are buyback programs from the manufacturer or seller of the items. There's always used sales platforms where you may even be able to make a little bit of money off of your items. And of course, the ever important donating to charities. There are so many opportunities, and if anyone has questions about specific items, you're welcome to contact me at any time, and I will work with you to find the right place to take your used products. Clothing is kind of a similar group of options. One thing I like to do with clothing is cut it up and use it as rags once it's done for cleaning bathrooms. And then food. I think that food often gets overlooked, but there are so many ways to recycle food, right? We can compost. We can work with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District, which, oh my God, it's such a mouthful every time I say it, Ethan. We can work with them in their wonderful green waste program, which I'm hoping Ethan might touch on in his address, but helps kind of process the composting for you. We can utilize food as ingredients. Maybe food that's close to expiring can be a great stew or a smoothie or a soup. And then we can also donate to food banks and food pantries, maybe for some community members who are experiencing some food scarcity. The last thing I want to talk about is the economic development impact of recycling. We know that recycling is so important for our ecosystems, but something that sometimes gets overlooked is that it's important for our economies too. The current recycling rate in the US is around 35%. And if we were able to raise that to 75% in the next 10 years, we could create an additional 1.1 million jobs in the sector, which is incredible and so transformative. The recycling industry has the power to create a sizable difference in jobs compared to landfills or incinerators. Landfill work is mostly a mechanized process, which you see illustrated in the figure on the left. Doesn't require as many workers on site or as many skilled workers. And recycling, on the other hand, requires a more ample labor force with a variety of skills, which helps create those jobs. Experts estimate that recycling industries can create as little as 9 times as many jobs and all the way up to 30 times as many jobs. So whichever amount you go with there, that's a huge difference. One thing I want to touch on, because I'm wondering if it might come up, is there's kind of an increasing knowledge surrounding the US's export of recyclables to other countries. The US has a history of exporting recyclable materials internationally, and with more recent international policies, that's changing. And the US is now needing to kind of bolster their own domestic recycling services. This is really important work if we want to reap the benefits for our domestic ecosystems and our domestic economies. Jobs anywhere in the world are important and wonderful, but we are especially passionate about jobs in our country. And as the US is working through kind of bolstering up our domestic program, they're going to need to be kind of strengthening processing locations, encouraging domestic markets for recycled materials, integrating end-of-life product design into the products that are purchased and sold here, and just having more clear communication through the different involved sectors. This is a lot of work, and it's really important work, but the good news is beginning in 2018, the EPA has started working on this through a variety of conferences and programs to hopefully strengthen what we do for recycling in this country. So that is everything I have to share for my remarks. I, again, just really want to encourage you to use my contact information. I am so passionate about this work and so grateful to work with passionate community members. So whether you are tuning in from one of the 3 cities that I am blessed to work with or a different community, I would love to hear your feedback, your questions. My virtual door is always open, and thank you again for having me. I'll go ahead and stop sharing and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Really appreciate your remarks and also your invitation to contact you if people have specific questions. Now, we certainly don't want to flood your inbox, but you know, we do have our Green Justice team that meets, and so maybe we can try to funnel requests to you maybe through that group if those are coming up, just to make it a little easier communication wise.
Certainly, yes.
Great. So now let's move to our third and final panelist of the evening, Ethan Morris. And Ethan Morris actually works for an organization that Samantha mentioned in her remarks, which is the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. And Ethan is the sustainability manager for that entity. So, so Ethan, let's see, I wonder if you're still with us. Let me check.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there for a second, but hopefully everybody can see me as well. Can you guys see me too?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello everybody. My name is Ethan. Thank you so much, Christopher, for inviting me here. And great job, Chris and Samantha. Those were great presentations. Like he said, I work for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. Many of you may know that we are the people who collect your garbage, recycling, maybe composting, and maybe glass every week. And I'm the sustainability coordinator there. One of the big things that I do is provide education and resources for you guys to kind of help you better figure out recycling and maneuver around a lot of the changes that have been happening in the last couple of years. So let me go ahead and share. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna share this and then, all right, can you guys see that? Does that work? Perfect.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so one of the big things that we do, so I should actually back up. So WFWRD services about 100,000 residential homes across the county. So Holiday is one of the cities that we get to service. And we provide, like I said, green waste, recycling services. We also offer glass in some cities, and then garbage, of course. One of the big things that we've been focused on lately is offering clear, accessible communication to all of our residents that's available whenever you may need it. I came into this position about 10 months ago, and right away I went through and overhauled our entire, educational materials and messaging, because we wanted to come from a positive stance that's here to help you learn, and also just to help you improve as we go into the future. One of the ways we do that is through our amazing quality assurance team. Some of you guys may have had the pleasure to meet them. They're made up of 2 staff, and then we also have our drivers that kind of help with this as well. And they're our team that when we go around each week, they'll actually check the bins before the recycling drivers come out to your house. They don't get to check every house, but we usually kind of split it up into certain areas. We check inside the bin, see what kind of contaminants are in there. And if for some reason a bin is very contaminated, we'll actually mark it. And so that might mean that the driver will miss your can. This is not a negative thing at all. This is more of just a learning experience. These little tags that we put on your can go through actually what we found in there and what doesn't belong in there. And then hopefully next time you'll remove those items, and those items won't go back in there. And we've seen a huge success. So from about average across all the cities that we've serviced, we've decreased the average contamination from around 40% to 20%. And in some cities, we're seeing as little as 10% contamination in the recycling. So we're making huge strides, and it's all thankful to you guys. So thank you so much. Now, the three things that I kind of want to tell you guys about. The first one are the 5 easy rules of recycling. So one thing that I do almost all year round, not right now because of the pandemic, is I go to elementary schools and I speak to students from 1st to 5th grade. Right before the pandemic, we actually went and spoke to about 80 classes. And so it was pretty crazy, but it was really worth it. And because we know that if we talk to your kids, your grandkids, that they'll take this information and they'll take it home and they'll tell you about it. And so these are the rules that we actually tell the kids in classes that they take really easily. And I think these are important rules for everybody. So the first one that we go through is no food, no water, and no grease. This is a big one because, like Chris talked about earlier with pizza boxes, it's very, very greasy. They cover the box and it makes the product actually non-recyclable. So before you recycle something, I always say the recycling stoplight. Right before you put it in the bin, stop, check to make sure that there's no food on it, there's no grease, and there's no liquids. If there is one of those, either try your best to remove it or throw it away, dump it out, and then recycle it. So greasy pizza boxes, some people told me like they'll cut out the greasy parts. That's great. And then you can recycle it. If you have something that's just not recyclable or it's going to take too much of another resource like water, I say just throw it away. The second rule is if it's plastic and you can ball it up in your hand, throw it away or take it to the grocery store. So I actually have a couple props here. So this is a plastic bag. When I say ball it up in your hand, this is what I mean. So if you can ball it up in your hand like that, it should not go in the recycle bin. The reason for this is because these products, when they go to the recycling center, can get caught in the machines and they can shut down the whole process. I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was Waste Management who said they have to close down around probably every hour, if not less, because they get so many plastic bags that jam up the machines. And they actually have to stop and go in and find where all the bags are and cut them out. So things like this, or I also like to call them flimsy plastics, they're a no-go. And one thing you can do is take these to your local grocery stores. I know Winco's, Winco's and Targets definitely have them. Some Harmons and some Smiths have them as well. And it's just right in the doorway. It's a big barrel. When you put them inside, what happens is they get picked up and they get taken to a place, it's a little bit north Salt Lake City. It's called Renewology. And what they do is they actually melt these down and turn them into petroleum, where they use them for, they turn it into a fuel and then sell it back to people. So it's not the greatest process of recycling, but it is taking something that would go sit in a landfill for thousands of years and turning it into something we can use now. The third rule, if it's 2 or more materials and it can't be separated, throw it away. So one of the best examples I have for this is those Amazon packaging. They're like little envelopes. They're probably about this big. They're yellow or white and blue on the outside, and on the inside, it's bubble wrap. When I say 2 or more materials that you can't separate, those things I can't pull apart. So if I can't pull them apart, we got to throw them away because at the recycling center, they're not going to be able to separate them either. And so things that you can separate, you're totally able to throw them right in there. So if you can take them apart and you can make them into one material, so one plastic, one like just cardboard, you can put that right in your recycle bin. The fourth rule, if it's plastic and you can drink out of it and it has a neck, you can recycle it. So this is a great one that we kind of came up with. And if you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, I have a water bottle there with kind of a little blue line that's designating what we call a neck. And a neck is kind of what leads up to where you put a bottle cap on it. Now, the neck is not what makes it recyclable, but the neck kind of offers an indicator for us to say that is a recyclable item. Water bottles are recyclable, but the one things that aren't are things like red Solo cups, plastic thin filmed cups, anything that's kind of just like a drinking cup that's made out of plastic. A lot of those are not recyclable, so we ask you to throw them away. They're a little too flimsy, they're a little too cheap in the plastics that they're made of, that they're not great to recycle, and so we just want to throw them away. So I always tell people, if it has a neck, so it goes up to where you can screw a bottle cap on it, it's recyclable. And then my last one, this is a great one, and this is one that we push a lot, is when in doubt, check it out or throw it out. Like Samantha, I am always available to you as a resource. I'll have a slide where I have my email and my phone number, so you always feel free to call me, email me anytime. I would love to help you with any items that you have that you're not sure about. And so if you have an item, you're not sure if it's recyclable, give me a call, do a quick Google search, check out our website. And if you can't figure it out, or I'm not able to give you the answer, I just say throw it away. You know, it's better to put items like that in the garbage can than contaminate our recycling. I myself have seen loads of recycling where people put animal carcasses, people put pounds of food in their recycle bins. And when that goes to the recycling center, it's mixed with all the other recyclables that was in that truck, meaning most likely that's all going to have to be taken to the landfill. So it's super important that we only put items that we're really confident about in the recycle bin. The next thing that I would like to talk about, and this is real quick, keep it simple and do what you can. This is a big one. I get a lot of calls from people who, oh, recycling is overwhelming. And I definitely understand. There's been a lot of changes and there's a lot of rules. But just do what you can and keep it simple. What I tell people to start off with is choose a couple products from your home right now that you have in your home that you know are recyclable, or that you'll learn that are recyclable, and just recycle those items. And as you become more confident, add more items to that list. There's no reason you got to be an expert right off the bat. And if you don't fill up your recycle bin every week, it's not a big deal. One thing I tell people is there's no pressure to fill up your bin every week. If it's an every 2 week or 3 week thing for you, keep it in your house, put it out when it's absolutely full. Those bins are only that big for, you know, those large Amazon boxes, or if you have a big family and you're recycling a lot. So don't feel like you have to fill those recycle bins up, and don't feel like you have to know or recycle every item that you have right away. It's a learning process, and it's what all three of us are here to help you with. The last thing I want to talk about is this new kind of recycle pyramid that's kind of coming out. It's called reduce, reuse, recycle, and rethink. You know, we know what the first three are, but this new idea of rethinking, and Chris and Samantha both touched on this, and I want to kind of hammer it again, is that we just need to rethink the items that we are using today. So we need to rethink the processes that we use in our homes, that we use out in our communities, and kind of rethink the products that we're buying and consuming. Going to the grocery store, one of the biggest things is take a reusable bag. If you don't own one, you can get them for really cheap. A lot of places will even give them out as free swag. Get your hands on a couple of those because they're huge. And just taking out a couple plastic bags from our homes and our landfills is huge for our environment. I also say, you know, invest in things like glass jars. Samantha touched on this. I believe I bought probably 12 or 15 of these for like $5 from Walmart. These are great. They go in your lunches really well. They hold ingredients really well. And there's no waste afterwards. Once I use the ingredients, I wash them and I can reuse them again. So it's all about rethinking the things that we're doing in our daily lives and the things that we're using. So there's 100 million resources out there to kind of help you replace those products in your life and potentially one day go zero waste like Samantha talked about. And I guess the last thing I want to touch on real quick is we have a ton of resources for you. And I'm going to just show you this website real quick. And hopefully, are you still seeing the PowerPoint? Is it still the PowerPoint or is it the website? Okay, let me switch to the website real quick. All right, can you guys see the website now?
Yes, we're good, right. Ethan.
Okay, perfect. So this is our website, Wasatch Front Waste Recycling. And on here, we actually have, hold on one sec. Okay, on here, we actually have a whole kind of slew of services. So you can go on here for recycling information, glass recycling, green waste information. It's all nice and easy. So if you go to our recycling page, we kind of overhauled it, and it goes through really the necessities of community recycling. One of the tools I want to touch on right now, and this one is huge, it's our brand new Recycle Right tool. This tool allows our residents to do two things. First of all, you can actually type in your address and it'll show you when your pickup days are, and you can even set reminders. I'm forgetful myself sometimes, so I love to set a reminder of when recycling or green waste pickup is. The next one, and this is the coolest one, is our Recycle Right tool. You can type any item in here and it'll show you these materials, and it'll actually tell you what to do. So let's say I have a paper bag, I'm not sure what to do with it. Click on paper bag and it'll tell you, you can put this item in your recycle can. And then it'll even remind you of when to have your cans out. And it even has a nice little picture as well. And the cool thing about this too is you can do any item, so not just recyclable items. So if you have something like a plastic plate, you know, put this item in your garbage can. This tool is huge, and I tell people to use it all the time because a lot of the questions you may have, you might be able to just type in here. One of my favorite things too is if you have an item that you're not sure about, and let's say you search it, I'll do a plastic plant. Let's see, I'm just gonna mistype this, hopefully, and then we'll do a search. So plastic plants, let's say, oh, I don't find my result in here. Well, I can go to the bottom and it says looking for a different item. I can actually click suggest plastic plants. And what it'll do is it'll go to the website that kind of hosts this tool. And I go in manually and I actually go through and take the items that you've suggested and I add them back into the tool. So for example, if I were to go back in, I could add plastic plants back into this and search it up, and I could find it and say, oh, okay, well, it's been added back in. I can see that I need to put it in my garbage can. I usually check it about once or twice, or about once every 2 weeks. And so any items that you suggest, I'll go in, I'll figure out what to do with them, and I'll add them to our tool. One thing I'd like to add as well is we also have a, let me show you real quick. We also have a mobile app as well. It's called WFWRD, and it's the same tool that you're seeing right there, but just on your phone. So you can search up your address, you can search up recyclable items, so you can take it with you on the go. And then at the very bottom, the last thing I'll show you here is at the very, very bottom, and this goes through a couple items. So glass drop-off sites, green waste, e-waste, and hazardous waste materials, plastic bags, and then we have some news, things you should know. But at the very, very bottom, we have our guides. And these guys are huge. Can you see what can you see the guide I'm showing? Okay. So this is one of our new fridge-friendly recycle guides. This actually, we encourage people to hang this on their fridge. And then what you'll see is a couple things that you'll notice is at the very top, we say all items must be empty, dry, and unbagged. We purposely don't say clean because we don't want people to put their items through the dishwasher or use a lot of soap and water to clean them. But this is a really easy guide. It tells you what is recyclable. So this is on our website. You can print it off, put it right on your fridge. The other guide I'll show you real quick. We also have this in Spanish as well. So if you're Spanish speaking, we have that resource there for you as well. And then we also have our hard to recycle materials guide. So this is items that may be recyclable, or we get a lot of recyclable questions asked, and where to take them. So you'll see in here, antifreeze. I think I saw a question earlier about fluorescent and CFL light bulbs. So if you actually look at the numbers next to it, so 1 and 2, you can take those items to the landfill, to any of those landfills, to their hazardous waste facilities. And I try to update this regularly. So I know with fluorescent light bulbs, you can also take them to your local libraries as well if they're a certain size. But there's a ton of different items on here, and we try to update this as new options become available. So definitely utilize these things that we have. And yeah, so I think those are the guides, those are the resources that we have for you. And then lastly, I will give you my contact information. Please take a picture of this, write it down. You can call me anytime. If I don't answer my phone, just leave me a message and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. But thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm glad I could share all this information with you guys.
Thank you very much, Ethan. I just want to do a quick time check. So we're at 8:20. I believe we're scheduled to leave at 8:30. And I don't want to take up, the entire evening of our panelists. So what I'm going to ask is, instead of me going through some of the questions that we received ahead of time, would the panelists, would you be okay if maybe I sent you a few of them to respond to offline, and then I can share them back with folks?
I would be totally happy to. I actually have the questions here in front of me, and I've responded to some, so I'd be happy to. I'm seeing a nod from Chris, so maybe he's done something similar. So that would work great. If I might quickly add, I'm seeing some notes on the chat about recycling and reusable products during times of COVID. And I just wanted to note two things. I did see somebody say, first, you can't use reusable bags during COVID. That's been an ever evolving thing with rightfully so prioritizing everyone's health. I was at Trader Joe's yesterday, and they do allow you, as another person noted, they will allow you to bag your own groceries there. And they'll even enter you into like a lottery there to win a gift card if you do bag your own with your bags. And then secondly, I see somebody has a shout out to Hello Bulk Shopping, which is one of my favorite stores. It's out by West High in Salt Lake, and they are an excellent resource for bringing your own containers. They are still operating during COVID and have been really flexible and fluid with their operations to keep everyone healthy and safe and package free. So if anyone needs resources to get in contact with them, aside from that website, please reach out because they are absolutely great.
Great. Well, let's, I do want to open it up for at least a question or two from our live audience. I don't know, honestly, the best way to prevent absolute chaos from everybody starting to talk at the same time. So I'm going to suggest something, that if you've got your camera turned on and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. And then I think Roger will be able to unmute you. So does anybody want to ask a question? And if you do, please raise your hand. Roger, do you want to invite Karen? He's trying. Karen, hang on just a second. We're just trying to figure out how to unmute you. Maybe
I can unmute myself. Just go down to the bottom left corner and just click on it and it'll unmute.
Yes, you can unmute yourself. Thank you, Karen. I mean, thank you.
A question about shredded paper. I understand you can't recycle shredded paper.
Let me field that one if I may. It's perfectly recyclable. It's just one of those classic things that just doesn't belong in the curbside bin simply because of how it goes everywhere and is pretty impossible to capture at a material recovery facility or recycling center as it's commonly known. There are drop-off locations in the valley. I believe International Paper at 2590 West, 15th South in Salt Lake is still accepting. Green Fiber should still have dumpsters out around the valley that you can deposit that paper in. And I can't speak for Rocky Mountain Recycling. They may or may not be still accepting public drop-off. I don't believe Waste Management is, but there are some drop-off locations. Shredded paper is still perfectly recyclable.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure, it just needs to get into the right stream. It's kind of like the film, the bags.
Okay, thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, I am speaking a little bit outside of my area of expertise, but I seem to recall that, paper like that is good for composting at home, that you put in a mixture of Well, Roger, I'm going to get this wrong. Roger hosted a webinar on composting for us a few weeks ago, and I think paper is a good stream for that as well.
Yes, it is. As long as it, plain office paper, newspaper, shredded paper, only soy ink. You don't want any poisonous ink. No plastic windows, as we discussed in your compost bin. So the little plastic address windows, don't put those in your compost.
Yeah, highest and best use would be still getting it to a paper recycler that can send it on where it's going to turn at least one more life in paper, as opposed to end of the line in compost, with all due respect to compost.
Cool. That's great to know. Okay, let's do it. Does anybody else have a question they want to ask? Maybe just raise your hand, and then I guess we'll call on you and then unmute yourself. I know that's a little cumbersome. Steve Ritchie.
So the question is, old textbooks. I'm not sure why they aren't recyclable. Must have to do with the covers. But if you take the covers off the textbooks, which are cardboard, I would think the paper inside would be recyclable. But generally, books are not wanted in recycling. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'll take this one. I actually met with Rocky Mountain Recycling, and this is one of the questions we asked, because we got a lot of questions about this. If you can't donate or like offer the book to somebody else and you need to recycle it, they will take books. They just ask that you try your best to remove the pages on the inside. So remove that cover. If it's a paperback cover, you're fine to just put it right in there. But if it's a hardback or a textbook, try your best to remove the pages and the cover from it. They told me they will still take them if the cover's on, but they don't want a whole bunch of books coming through, hardcover textbooks coming through the recycling center. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Yes, how about Linda Hilton?
Follow up to the book question. If you take the cover off, then do you throw the cover away, or can the cover be recycled separately since it's cardboard?
I would suggest throwing the cover away, because a lot of that stuff has that like waxy film over the top, and it's just not recyclable. And also the glue on the binding is not recyclable either. And that is what you'll see with a lot of products. I was looking at the questions, and a lot of people said like dog food bags or coffee bags, things like that. They have that like waxy coating on them, and that waxy coating is like the enemy to recycling. So anything that has that waxy coating on it, just throw it away, because you can't go through a recycling center.
Okay.
I hope I knocked out a couple of questions there too.
Well, I actually had a different question, but I wanted to follow up on Steve's. You cannot donate hangers to thrift stores anymore. And I'm wondering if any kind of hanger, there's the wire hangers, there's the plastic tube hangers, and then there are like the department store hangers that are metal and plastic. And the donation places won't take them anymore. And when you're downsizing, you end up with thousands of hangers. And what do you do with them? Just throw them?
If I might add, this is not necessarily something to do with recycling in a can or anything, but on the zero waste group that I'm a part of, the Buy Nothing group, I see people asking for them all the time. So if you are interested in joining your local kind of chapter of that, I think that Pastor Chelsea may have shared the Buy Nothing project like group finder in the chat. That is one of the most commonly sought after items in our group, and it seems that people can benefit from them just as you're downsizing. Maybe someone's sizing up.
I downsize lots of people, and hangers are the bane of my existence. Thank you. You've made my day.
Yes, join a group and maybe you'll end up with something you need, and they'll end up with your hangers, and it's a great
I don't need
resource.
anything. Nothing.
I love it.
Well, that's great. Well, we are at 8:30. I apologize that we were not able to cover, we had a ton of great questions. I will follow up with the panelists offline just to see if they'd be willing to to answer any of those, although I do suspect that, some of these resources that they've provided us would also, answer them. And I would also say, I'll go ahead and try to make I'll try to aggregate all these resources that we've heard about and share them back to our HUCC community. And if there are others who are watching this presentation and who want to get that, please just let me know and I'll send it to you. Maybe we can even post it to our webpage. So anyway, I want to go ahead and end there and just want to again thank our panelists for taking your time out of your evening to join us. It's great to see you and meet you and learn more. I'm seeing some clapping. And then to all of the folks who came and joined, thank you for participating. And I hope you learned something, and we'll continue the recycling and rethinking conversation.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, Chris, for putting it together for us, hon.
You bet. And it was also a team effort of the Holiday United Church of Christ Green Justice team, and we'll do some more events in the future.
Okay.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Nice
Good
work.
night.
Bye.